When I look back at the men I chose to love, it's clear now. I wasn't choosing with my heart. I was choosing with my trauma. I was a dismissive, avoidant attachment style woman who had no clue of what a healthy, secured attachment style of loving was. Welcome, my loves, to the Hurt, Hardened, and Healed Podcast. Let's sit on down. What can I say? I'm always excited when I see y'all. So first off, thank you so much for allowing me back into your home for another episode of the Hurt, Hardened, and Healed Podcast. As you may know, we are on season 2 now. Let's clap it up for season 2. So why I decided to end the previous season and begin a new season is because I feel like last season was surface-based. We tapped on a lot of topics surrounding childhood trauma and what that looks like, and also identifying it with an attachment style, something that I think a lot of us were unaware of. I certainly was unaware of attachment styles, and learning that gave me like this aha moment like you would not believe. So who am I? I am London. I am your healologist. I am here to help you get to the other side of trauma and straightforward to healing. Because at the end of the day, that's what we need. We need to be healed. We don't need to be suffering from childhood trauma into our adulthood life and have it wreak havoc. We have unhealthy relationships, unhealthy boundaries, unhealthy expectations, and it is putting us on this circle of no success. We're not getting the love that we want. We're not getting the respect that we want. And we're just not getting to the place that God has called us to be. So I found it my duty, my mission to be a part of not only a journey, but a transformation that is so necessary to the capacity of the human being that we all want to become. We want to be pillars of our community. We want to set the example for our children and young adults. We want to break generational curses. We want to find the right way to do the right thing, right? I think before we was trying to find the right way to do the wrong thing, and needless to say, we'll never find that because there's never a right way to do the wrong thing. If you haven't heard it before, you are hearing it now. So what is this episode, this season all about? Well, one is now identifying our attachment styles and applying it to our life. What does that look like in our everyday adulthood life? Because now that we have this knowledge and this information, what do we do with it? So I want to start this particular episode off with, and I titled it, I'm Not Crazy, I'm Triggered. And what does that mean? So just a sidebar note, if you are unfamiliar with your attachment style, I have a whole season and episode that speaks about it. But just to briefly get you caught up, I have an attachment style quiz. It's very simple to do. It is listed in the description bar below. So not only can you see what I'm talking about, but you get to understand and identify with a new you. And let me tell you, the aha is real, boo. So take that attachment style quiz and subscribe. Have you subscribed? If you have not subscribed, subscribe. Hit the notification bell so that you do not miss any episodes. It is right beside that subscribe button. You want to hit all so it lets you know every time I post, just in case there's little bonus episodes out there. I'd hate for you to miss that. So if you have not subscribed, subscribe. So to continue with this new season, I'm not crazy, I'm triggered. What does that mean? So first off, I'm excited that we're in a new season. Why? Because it's time, right? Not only is the months seasonal, the weather seasonal, but life is seasonal. So I wanted to start off season 2 digging deep. I know I professed to dig deep in season 1, but it was still surface level based on making certain that we have an understanding of our attachment styles. That in itself was deep. But now that we have those attachment styles and we understand the labeling, now it's time to get to why and what do we do now to become better adults in our adulthood life. For me, I realized that trauma became the catalyst to my comedic side. It was the reason why I was so jokey and so silly and could crack a good joke or create a good laugh. And I won't say that humor covered the trauma, but it made it livable. If you know me outside of this podcast, it's safe to say that there's a silly bone covering my entire body. On my TikTok, I do a lot of comical skits, and even just in my day-to-day life, my children happen to be funny. My mom is hilarious, and my husband, gotta love him. But underneath all that laughter was a broken child, that was navigating through life and smiling her whole way through. That's what we do. We smile, we take it on the chin, and we keep it moving. But how does that benefit us when it comes to now being an adult and dealing with the parts of life that are serious, that's not funny? I needed to be able to show that despite my humor, despite my laughter, despite my positive outlook, there was still someone internally grieving normalcy in a way that I saw fit, right? We all ideally have an idea of what normalcy is like, whether it's from watching the Cosbys and thinking that you should come from this 2-parent home where your mother and father have well-to-do jobs. They love on each other all the time. Money is not an issue. You get the best of everything. You have siblings. You have sibling rivalries. But at the end of every episode, you're friends again. You love one another. It ends with a happy ending. Well, not so much in the real world. Life doesn't always have a happy ending to every story. Or should I rephrase that? Maybe the ending isn't necessarily expected to be happy, but to be fair. So what do we call fair in life? What do we see as fair? Is fair having what my neighbors have? Is it getting the perfect job, the perfect spouse, having the perfect children? Or is it knowing how to navigate life when it isn't perfect, right? It's like being able to understand that this didn't go your way, but there is still some good that can come out of it. So I'm not crazy. I'm triggered. And there is a difference. So let's get into triggers and what that really looks like and how it plays out in our day-to-day lives. Because even though I'm laughing and I'm smiling, I have to be very in tune to what my triggers are so that I can keep that smile on my face, so that I can continue to laugh and bring joy and laughter to others. A lot of times we are masking things as opposed to healing. I didn't want my laughter to cover my pain. I wanted my laughter to be a result of my resilience, of my tenacity, of my willpower, right? That in itself is a type of strength that you can't even laugh about. Like, it takes you to a whole nother level. Because when the dust settles and it just isn't funny anymore, what is left? So triggers are life's speed bumps. And the speed bumps are set up to slow you down. Now, depending on the size of the speed bump, it can completely stop you. If you've driven a vehicle and you've ridden too fast over a speed bump, it sounded like the whole bottom of your car was going to fall out. And for some people, it actually did. And it could have been because of the way the car was made. Listen to the analogy here. If the car was made low, which meant it had smaller tires up underneath, the vehicle itself sat real low, then that means that it wasn't conditioned to go over very large speed bumps, especially at a high rate. And sometimes that's us as people, right? We're small in stature, but we're also small in emotion. We're small in thought. We don't think highly of ourselves. We don't see ourselves as big. We look in the mirror and we might see frail, or we might see inadequate. And so when we see those things, then we don't think that we have the ability to operate to a max capacity. That's one. When we are now approaching things like a speed bump, if we didn't see it, that's an impact. If we saw it, but we underestimated the size, that's an impact. But some speed bumps, we just aren't built to clear. There's just some vehicles that are not going to make it over a certain size speed bump. So what does that mean? We find another way. Whether it's to go around it, whether it's to go back and rebuild, whether it is to create a buffer, we find a way. So when these speed bumps and these triggers hit, knowingly and unknowingly, we have to find a way to get over it. We have to find a way to get through. And so if you have triggers that you are unaware of, you are way more at a detriment than someone who is aware of their speed bumps, or in this case, triggers. Because then you see it coming. How many times have you rode into a neighborhood and you could spot the speed bump almost a mile away? You already know to slow down. You already know to take your time. And you know, possibly there's probably more than one, right? Think about how smooth that is when you are aware of the speed bump. It's the same thing with a trigger. When you are aware of what your triggers are, because more than likely it's not just one, then you are aware how to proceed with caution, but also sometimes how to avoid. There are times when I have driven in an area where there was a speed bump, but if I swerved my car a little bit more left or a little bit more right, I could avoid the speed bump altogether. Of course, that's not what it was there intending to do, but you do it. It happens. So with triggers, identifying is first. You have to identify with your triggers. Now, that is kind of hard if you have not identified with your traumas. So the trigger kind of comes after the trauma. Or let me say that better. It's trauma that's triggered, right? So you have to now in your adult life say, I notice I respond and I behave in this manner when this happens. Right? So that's like A plus B equals C, right? I respond in this manner when this said thing happens. What is that? Let's plug those in. So let's use me for an example. Because I had quite a few triggers, most of them all stemming around abandonment issues and rejection issues. I wouldn't say neglect. I don't feel like I experienced a lot of neglect coming up. And I think abandonment and neglect are two different things. Some people see them as one and the same, but I will say rejection was a big thing for me. And even now, I don't know why it matters as much. Because even in understanding that and sometimes knowing that the no is best, it still doesn't help how it feels, right? It still doesn't make it go down a little bit more easier. But an example I would like to use would be in relationships, right? We're not crazy in these relationships. We're triggered in relationships. So when I was dating, I had so many ideas of what I thought a healthy relationship looked like. And while I will still stand on what I thought those criteria were, because I still agree to them, I did not know that I was not healthy for the healthy relationship that I wanted. Go figure, right? So Things like showing interest. I struggled with that. I wanted to be noticed and I wanted to receive admiration and attention, but I did not want to give it. So this goes back to abandonment and rejection. One is, I can't fathom giving you all this attention, all this love, and you may leave. That's abandonment. I can't fathom me giving you all this love and all this attention, and you reject it. That rejection would do me in. So while I wanted these things that most healthy people in healthy relationships wanted, I was not able to reciprocate it for fear that in doing so would cause a negative outcome. Now, why is that? Probably because of how I was responding, right? So if someone's giving me attention, they're giving me love, they're giving me affection, and I'm withholding because in my mind, based off my traumas, I feel like in doing so, like there's no longevity to that. People don't do that for an extended period of time or continuously. They do that long enough to get what they want. Then I am not going to give that because I don't trust that. No matter how much I want it, I'm not going to give it. And so therefore, in me not giving it, then I'm going to perceive that you're not giving it, even though that is exactly what I'm looking at. And so the part of my childhood that ties into one was just being an only child. So being an only child, I grew up in New York. My mom was super protective, not overly, but my mom felt like the safety was in being, for me, there was a gain. For me, it felt like a tactic. So as long as we were in a relationship that was surface level and I didn't have to give a lot of myself emotionally, then I didn't have to connect deeply, then I couldn't be broken. But I didn't know I had already been broken. I showed up with my life or my heart already in pieces and was oblivious to that. And here I am trying to make sure that you don't break the pieces of me that are already broken. So really, in hindsight, what you're looking for is for someone to put those pieces together. But if you don't know you're broken, then you are going to be defensive to the repair, right? If you're not sick, why would you go to the hospital? Why would you take medicine? Why would you work on something that is not needed of repair? Let's let that breathe. Why? Then what happens is, because you think you're emotionally well, someone comes along, they hit one of your triggers, you spaz out, and you're considered crazy. Oh gosh, this girl is losing it. This guy is losing it. She's so obsessive. He's so obsessive. He's a control freak, or she's a control freak, or just the things that deem people unstable. And it's really about dealing with emotions that were shifted during childhood. So what I learned about myself and one of my triggers was that if you came on too strong, I'm out. I know that there's some intent behind this. I don't know what it is, and I'm not here to find out. So for me, what I had to do in order to offset that trigger is decide that it didn't matter if there was intent. I had the authority to decide how far your intentions could go. But I also had to learn to give grace and the benefit of the doubt. Those are the things that we don't want to talk about. Am I saying, so I need to give you the opportunity to hurt me? No, I need to give you the opportunity to love me. Doesn't that just hit different when you say it like that? People say, I'm not giving anybody the opportunity to hurt me. Well, you don't give anybody the opportunity to love you either. It's like you can't have one without the other, because the opportunity is just what it is. It is saying that I am going to open my emotions and my feelings, and I am going to be vulnerable in this situation to see if there is something substantial and stable that I can attach myself to. Without being able to do that, then you pretty much put yourself in a coffin. I hate to say that, but the journey of dating is dead. You're not going to be able to get but so far and no more. And so when I learned that I was triggered by expressive affections, I also learned that it wasn't that I didn't want that. It was that I didn't trust that. And that I had, for as good as I thought that should feel, I tied that action to a negative outcome. One I had not really experienced. I really hadn't. This was what I was taught, and I went with that. But I had not been romantically in a relationship that told me otherwise. And not having a father figure at that time, or pretty much not at all, in my childhood, it made it even more impossible to weed out good intentions from bad. So they all got pushed under the bad intention. That was my trauma. My trauma was don't love hard. But it showed up as don't love at all. And I realized that my expectations were crazy. Because it did not mean, again, that I did not want to be loved. It did not mean that I did not want acts of affection. But it meant that not only could I not receive it, but I could not give it, and I still wanted it. Now that's crazy. Or am I just triggered? Let's let that breathe. How many of you are out there wanting love, wanting affection, and the minute it shows up, you're gone? You're ghosting, you're blocking, you're avoiding, you're making excuses, you are paralyzed with fear. Fear because something in your childhood taught you that you can't trust that behavior. The behavior isn't the problem. It's usually the person that's providing it. So that's why it is more important now to learn your partners way before you say I do, and in depth. And granted, we're always evolving. We're always learning. We're always reshaping and remolding. And it happens. Sometimes the person that we met today is not the person a year from now. That happens. And hopefully that is with a level of maturity and growth. You want that to happen. But what you don't want is to be boxed in with fear from your childhood trauma that is literally driving you crazy. And you're being triggered at every corner. And let me tell you why. One of the reasons you're going to be triggered, it is because you're actually asking or desiring something that you're not capable of having, receiving, reciprocating. So you're drawing that thing that you want, but you're unable to keep it. You're unable to nurture it. You're unable to cultivate it. So it comes and then it goes. It comes and then it goes. Because while you may be able to do some of the things to bring it near, you aren't nearly capable enough to do the things to keep it there. So this is why knowing your triggers are important, because when it comes, rather than letting your trauma speak for you, you have to be able to have that sidebar conversation with yourself and say, self, and myself said, you got to be able to say, okay, girl, this is what you want right here. So don't focus as much on the action, but who's providing it. Is he giving you enough for you to say, I can trust this? This is authentic. This is real. This is the nature of who he is. How is he in other relationships? If you're spending time with someone, you should be able to be in other settings with them to see how they are, right? If a man tells you, girl, I'll buy you the world, and he's kicking out all this money, but he is sending you to his mama, his sister to him, his brother to him, his co-workers and his neighbors. And I don't just mean financially, but even with his time or with his energy, with his attention. The chances of you being the exception to the rule is very slim to none. I had to learn that. I had to learn that I don't want someone who is different with me in a good way, but different with others in a bad way. I need someone who is different with others in a good way and different with me in a better way. That's what we have to be checking for. How good is your good? Like, is it good with them and good with me? Or is it good with me and bad with them? Because one of these things is more truth than the other. I need to be able to identify what that is. So what your homework is to learn your triggers. Spot them a mile away. Spot the people who bring on your triggers. Maybe these are people that you need to excommunicate from. Maybe these are people that you need to bring up to date on and say, hey, listen, that right there is a no for me. That does not serve me well. It causes a problem between you and I. And rather sitting here and suffering in silence, having an attitude, or just ghosting you altogether, I love you enough to have this conversation. I'm going to create these boundaries and ask you not to trigger me in this way. But the bigger flex is to be able to rise above the actual trigger when it happens. Because people are not going to be operating day in and day out like, oh, I hope I don't trigger her. Oh, I hope I don't trigger him. But in the event that it happens, you be able to go, okay, hold on. I'm not going to let my triggered trauma navigate the decision or the action that I need to make in this space. I'm not. Some things are necessary triggers to heal you. If you were wounded in an area, let's say an elbow, and you didn't know that in order for that elbow to heal, you can't put any pressure on it, or maybe you can't flex it, what would help you? Pain. Every time you flexed it, every time you bent it, the pain would remind you, oh, I cannot do that. But it would allow you to then heal and have that mobility again. And once you redeem that mobility, it's not sensitive anymore. What happens is we redeem mobility and we're still triggered. We're still sensitive. That was a moment of healing. You should have healed past that. You should be healing past that. We should not allow fixable problems to go on like a plague. Let's fix these things. Because the other option is to be out here acting crazy. Do we really want that? Absolutely not. So the child in us is screaming for a resolve. They really want us to fix what was broken, what was damaged, what was hurt, and repair, resolve, grow, and move on. Some of y'all are stuck at 7 or 5 or 3 or 12. And so when you are spazzing out, i.e. acting crazy, nobody understands why. They're like, this little isolated incident could not have caused this. It did. It triggered. It triggered an older trauma that had not been dealt with. But guess what? That's what we're doing now. We're dealing with it. So to whoever don't like it, oh well, we get into the other side. This healing journey is definitely not for the weak, but we're not looking to be. It is definitely for the wise, and that's who we are. Because now we're educated, we're filled with knowledge, we're filled with understanding, and you know what's left? Execution. So stop being crazy. Be triggered, but not to trauma, to triumph. Okay, so you got your homework, you got your attachment style, you got your instructions. Let's get it, let's go. I mean, we were hurt. It caused us to be hardened. But now we're trying to heal, baby. That's where we're at. And I'm here for it. I'm here with you. I'm still healing. We're still healing. This is a healing nation. Let's at the end of the day, that's where we at. Our end goal is healing. But for today, my end goal is to get up out of your home, let you get yourself ready for the rest of the evening, and I'll talk to you later. You know, I'm going to be here next week, same time, as I always say. Bye, loves. Now, if you enjoyed this episode of the Hardened Healed Podcast, go ahead and subscribe, share with a friend, and turn on your notification button so that you don't miss an episode.